Okay, so today, what we're going to do is find the vertex from the zeros, okay? So we're going to find, using zeros, to find the vertex. So what we know is this. The vertex is always got to be smack dab right in the middle. Do you guys agree with that? So the line of symmetry on this one's going to go, right? Everybody agree with that? There's my line of symmetry. And in this case, it's going to be x equals 1, okay? Now, line of symmetry on this one, right down the middle, okay? So what we find is this. If we know these two zeros, okay? Shh, boys, will you stop talking, please? If we know these two zeros, okay, we've got a -1 and a 1, 2, right? We know it's got to be right in the middle. It's got to be right in the middle. So if we have our zeros to find the vertex, it's just going to be the average of these. It's going to be just simply P plus Q divided by 2. It's just the average of them. That's all. Okay? So let's turn the page and see how that works. Okay? All right? So here we go. We have, boys, shh. We have P and Q. We know the vertex has got to go right through the middle. It's a great picture. It really shows it. We've got P and Q, which could be any numbers. Could be any numbers. But we know the vertex has got to go right through the middle. So what we do is just average these to find out where it is. So the line of symmetry goes right through the middle of your zeros, doesn't it? Okay? So we can say that the vertex line of symmetry is in the middle of the zeros. Okay? It's in the middle of the zeros. So here's my zeros. Could be any number. I mean, they use P and Q to represent any number, okay? Maybe it's -3, maybe it's 5, whatever. Any number. That's why they use P and Q for any numbers. But the vertex has got to go right through the middle of those, doesn't it? So that we can reflect it over, right? Because we know if you got a point here, you can reflect the other one over here, okay? If we know that, then let's take a look at example 1 on page 97, okay? So first of all, find the x-intercepts and the axis of symmetry. So my x-intercepts from many equations. My x-intercepts, so we do our many equations. We'd have one is x equals -2, right? I mean, I skipped a step to solve this, but you guys know if you go, x plus 2 equals 0 and x minus 4 equals 0, we'd get a -2 and we'd get a x equals 4, okay? Now, if we wanted to graph it, which we're not going to on this one, we're going to graph them later, we know that what's going to happen is the vertex has got to be right in the middle of that. So let's average them. So we're going to average these. Let's average these numbers. So how do you do an average? You add them up and divide by 2, right? Right? How do you do an average? We're just going to go -2 plus 4 divided by 2, which gives us a 2 over 2, which is a 1. So on this graph, we know the following, okay? We know the x-intercepts are at -2, 4, and the line of symmetry is at, my LOS is at x equals 2, x equals 1. Okay, now actually let's graph it. Let's take a look at example 3, okay? So first of all, I'm going to go ahead and make my xy axis, okay? All right, let me go ahead and, I'm going to put it, I kind of know where I'm doing, so I'm going to put it way over here. Kind of got an idea what it's going to look like, okay? So I'm going to put it way over here, like that, okay? Okay. So first, x-intercepts. To get my x-intercepts, write this down. X-intercepts. So to get x-intercepts, let's do our mini. So it's already factored. It's in factored form, right? It's in factored form. So let's do our mini equations. I got 0 equals x plus 5, and I have 0 equals x plus 1, right? Do our little mini equations, right? Because what we're finding are the x-intercepts or the zeros, okay? -5, -5. 1 is at -5. -1, the other's at -1. Okay, so I can graph those. Okay, I can graph those, right? So I'm going to go to -1 and put a dot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and put it out, okay? And now, once I got the x-intercepts down, I know for sure, and you do too, you know for sure, we know for sure that the line of symmetry has to go right through the middle of those. I mean, think about it. It's got to reflect over to its other point, right? Which means the line of symmetry's got to go right through the middle of those 2 points. Does that make common sense? Right? Everybody watching? Does that make sense? If I got a point here and a point here, the line of symmetry's got to go right through the middle of it, right? So that means my vertex is somewhere on this line. Okay? So I do know my line of symmetry is x equals -3, right? That's my LOS, line of symmetry, right? But what I don't know is the corresponding y value. So we'll do what we've always done. To find the y, we plug it in, okay? So we're going to take this and we're going to plug it in for x, okay? So to get its corresponding y value, the vertex then is at -3 something, right? So let's plug it in to get the something. So I'm going to go, okay, I can do that. I'm going to go y equals, I'm going to plug -3 in. We'll go -3 plus 5 times -3 plus 1. Okay, and I'll stall for a second, let you catch up, okay? Okay, Tegan, I know you're tired. You're going to be more tired tomorrow, and Friday you're going to be wiped out. But that's okay. We're going to make it work, okay? Here's what I know. I know for sure that the vertex has to lie on this line because it's in between these 2 values, right? Okay, so I knew it had to lie right there. So I know the line of symmetry is at -3. Now to get its corresponding y value, take the -3 and we plug it in for x, right? Because it's x. So I plug it in for x here and here. So I've got my -3 there and my -3 there. Okay, so let's simplify. This is going to be a 2 times a -2, right, which is a -4. There's my vertex, right? I plugged it in. My -3, I plugged my -3 into here. I went -3 plus 5 is 2, -3 plus 1 is -2. 2 times -2 is -4. There's my vertex. So I can go to -3 and 1, 2, 3, 4 and draw in my parabola, okay? That's not hard, is it? Now, what the book's going to tell us is that we could have gotten this line of symmetry just by averaging them. So real quick, they're going to say, well, what is my -5 plus my -1? So if we average these, we'd get a -6 divided by 2 is -3. Okay, let's do it that way. Okay, next time. Okay, on 4. Okay, watch 4. Okay, so 4. First of all, my zeros are at x equals 3 and x equals 1. Do you guys agree with that? I mean, I did the mini equations in my head because I can do that, right? I set this equal to 0. Solve it. I can do this equals 0, right? You guys know how to do this, right? We've done this lots of times. I don't need to show this step, right? Okay, now, if we want the line of symmetry, it's in the middle, right? So the book says, hey, here's a better way than even graphing it. It's even faster. The book says just average them. So to find my LOS, my line of symmetry, we can go 3 plus 1 divided by 2. That's another way, right? So we know it's in the middle, which is the average. So I'm just going to go, okay, what's 3 plus 2? 3 plus 1 divided by 2 is 4 divided by 2, which is 2. So I know when I graph this thing, okay, I know this. Let me go ahead and put my graph down. Here's my axes and my axes. I know that I'm going to have a 0 at 3. I'm going to have a 0 at 1. And my line of symmetry is at 2. Well, that actually, I got that without even graphing it, right? So you don't have to graph them to get the line of symmetry. You just average them. That plus that divided by 2 gets you your line of symmetry. It goes right through the middle, right? So then, that's my line of symmetry is x equals 2. But what about my vertex? My vertex is 2 something, right? My vertex is 2 something. So let's plug the 2 in. Let's take the 2 and plug it in for x to get the corresponding y value, right? So I can do that. All right, so I'm going to go, okay, y equals -4 times a 2 minus 3 times a 2 minus 1. So I'm just plugging the 2 into x for the equation. Got it? Plug in 2 in for x. Okay, and if I simplify that, I get a -4 times a -1 times 1, right? Which is going to be 4 times 1, which is 4. So my vertex is at 2, 4. Okay, so 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oop, off my paper. And it looks something like this. Okay, something. Okay, how's that for bad looking? Oh, that's pretty bad looking, pretty sad. Okay, I know it's upside down anyway. It is upside down. Why did I make it upside down? Why did I make this graph upside down? Yeah, okay. There's a negative right there. Plus, if the vertex is here and the x, those are there, it's got to be upside down. Right? You put a point here and you get 2 points here, it's got to be upside down. But mostly is what Tim said, because we got a negative 4. Thank you, Tim. Okay. Now, let's take a look at number 5. Okay, now, number 5 is not. It is not in factored form. Hey, I can factor this though, right? So I'm going to rewrite this as y equals x plus 2, x minus 2, right? Let's just factor it. X plus 2, x minus 2. Okay. So my zeros are at x equals negative 2 and x equals positive 2, right? There's my zeros, okay? Sierra. Okay. I think Brooks wants to see it, okay? Okay, let me keep going. So, alright. Oh, sorry about all that. So, cool. So let me go ahead and graph, put my line in, right? Okay, put my line in, I know I'm going to have my zeros at negative 2 and 2, right? Everybody got that? Okay, now where's my line of symmetry? Where's my LOS? Where's my line of symmetry? Cooper, you watching? Of course you are.
No.
Josiah?
0.
Yeah, it goes right through the middle. Everybody agree with that? So my line of symmetry has to go right through the middle, right? So it's at x equals 0.
So the 0 y-axis.
And we also know the y-intercept, don't we? That's my y-intercept is at 1, 2, 3, 4. And I can just draw in my parabola. Easy, huh? Thumbs up? Good. Okay, number 6. It needs to be factored, doesn't it? Let's factor it, okay? Let's factor it. F of x, same thing as y. Y and f of x are interchangeable. We'll talk more about f of x later, but f of x and y mean the same thing. Okay, so how about a x plus 5, x minus 3? You guys agree with that? With my factoring, right? And then, so my x-intercepts on this one, my x-intercepts, my zeros, same thing, are going to be at x equals negative 5 and x equals positive 3, right? We're doing the opposite. We're solving, doing mini equations, but I can do my mini equations in my head. Easy. That's going to be a negative 5. Everybody agree? Boom. And positive 3. Boom, right? Because we're just doing the mini equations in our brain because we're smart, okay? So, let me go ahead and draw in my axes, okay? So I know I'm going to go something like right about here maybe. Okay, get that in there. Okay. All right. So I'm going to put a x-intercept at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, okay? Now, where's my line of symmetry? Where's my line of symmetry? Well, let's average them. Let's go negative 5 plus 3 divided by 2, right? Because we should be able to find right in the middle. All I'm doing is averaging to find the middle, which is a negative 2 over 2, which is a negative 1. So x equals negative 1 is my line of symmetry. X equals negative 1. I'll put that in. Boom, 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 boom. There's my line of symmetry at x equals negative 1, LOS. Okay? Now, I'm going to have to rescale this graph. I'm not going to get down to negative 15. That's my y-intercept, isn't it? So my y-intercept, here's my y-intercept. So maybe I'll go by 2's. Let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 4. Maybe I'm going to go by 2's will work. Let's go by 2's. Negative 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Negative 16's there. So I can put my negative 15 right there. Okay? My line of symmetry, right? And now what do we got to find? Well, how about the vertex, right? So the vertex is somewhere along this line, right? So I'm going to plug to find the vertex. Let's plug in x equals negative 1. Okay, and I'll do that work right here. I'll go, okay, I'll say f of negative 1 is equal to negative 1 squared plus 2 times negative 1 minus 15. And I'm really good about using a calculator because I just, don't call me lazy, just call me smart to use a calculator, right? Let's use a calculator, okay? So let's put this in here. Let's check it out, all right? All right, so on, clear, parentheses, negative 1 squared plus 2 times negative 1 minus 15. Okay, I get an answer negative 16. Okay, I'm going to for sure have another point right there, and I could just graph my parabola in. Okay, let's turn the page, and then we're going to summarize, okay? We're going to turn the page and summarize, okay? Let me turn the page. All right. Okay, let's do one last problem. We're going to do number 9 together, and we're going to summarize. Okay, so up above. Okay, first of all, okay, number 1, first of all, let's make some steps, okay? Steps. We're going to write some steps down here as we summarize, okay? We don't need that and that, okay? Steps, right? First thing I'm doing, 1, is I'm going to factor, okay? First thing I'm going to do is factor. And if it's already factored, nice, right? So I'm going to factor so that I can, 2, find zeros. And the zeros come from the many equations, right? So let's summarize before we move on, okay? So steps. First factor. Okay, I'll factor this one. X minus 5, x plus 2, right? I think that's right. Now if you want zeros, we said equals 0, right? So find zeros, find the many equations. So then we're going to have my zeros for this equation. My zeros are at x equals 5 and x equals negative 2, right? Okay, so step 1, factor. Step 2, find the many equations, okay? Step 3 is I'm going to find the vertex. So step 3, I'm going to find the vertex. And I'm going to average the zeros. So I'm going to average the zeros. All right, that's easy. I'm just going to go, okay, down here, I'm going to average zeros. I'm going to add them up and divide by 2. Add them up, divide by 2, right? So I'm just going to go 5 plus a negative 2 divided by 2, right? Which makes 3 over 2, which is 1.5. Okay, so my LOS, or line of symmetry, is going to be at x equals 1.5, okay? So that's step 3. Step 4 is let's find its y value. So plug in. So for vertex, y value, plug it in, okay? Plug it in. So what do I mean by plug it in? We'll take our 1.5 and plug it in. So we could either plug it into the original or into the factored. It's actually easier if you plug it in the factored form. It really is. So I'm going to plug it in. I'm going to go parentheses 1.5 minus 5 times 1.5 plus 2, okay, which makes a negative 3.5 times 3.5, and I'm going to use my calculator to get that, right? So just plug it in to get my corresponding y value. So clear, quit. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I get an answer of about 12.25. Okay, so my vertex on this one is just going to be 1.5, 12.25, okay? And then this last step, let's just graph it, right? Step 5, let's graph all our points. All right, so I'm going to graph it. Almost done, really. I am almost done. All right, so 0 is at 5 and negative 2, so probably want to put it like this a little bit, right? Like that, maybe like that. So I've got my zeros at 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I got a 0 at negative 2, right? I got my line of symmetry at 1.5. I've got an x-intercept or y-intercept also, don't I? Okay, I got my y-intercept There's my y-intercept. Is it negative 10? So I might have to go by 2's again, right? 2, 4, 6, 8. There's negative 10. So I got a point there. I got a vertex at 1.5 and 12. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12.25. Just draw it in. Just draw it in. All right. So I am almost done. Okay. Let's go back through it. So if you're going to do these, step 1, factor them. Okay. So when you factor them, you can get your mini equations, right? Everybody watching? So you're going to factor it first. If it's already factored, awesome. We don't have to worry about it, okay? Because some of these will be, okay? So step 1, factor it first, okay? Then you get your mini equations, you get your zeros, right? My zeros are where it crosses at 5 and negative 2, right? Those are my zeros, okay? Step 3, then find the vertex. Well, vertex got to be right in the middle of your zeros, so I average them, right? I went that plus that, 5 plus negative 2 divided by 2. I average them, right? Gets me my line of symmetry because we know it's in the middle, so we average them. Does that make sense? Right in the middle. So then that gives me my line of symmetry, but I got to plug in my line of symmetry either into the original or into the factored. Doesn't matter. Either into the original or into the factored. And that'll give me my y values. Oops, I made a mistake. That should be a negative, right? Should be a negative. And that'll give you your y value of vertex, and then just graph it in. Okay, can you do this? Thumbs up. All right. Thank you, Katie. So we have an assignment on the computer.